get right. Let's 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 get right. You already know what it is, man. It's your boy Dealatofficial. And this is No Filters. Always appreciate you hitting that like button for me, subscribing to the channel so you don't miss an episode, and sharing this with the world. And of course, family, when you come in, get comfortable. Get you something to eat, get you something to drink, get you something to smoke if that's what you do. Cause you see the title, fam. Wow, this crazy. These folk crazy. Good. Crazy. Crazy work in
this country. We need to change that in order to.
crazy. This is crazy. Crazy right here. Let's see. Let's get into this here.
Then we expand them. Use of space.
This is a film about power. I'm your commentator, Mark Reed. Power is a difficult phenomenon to observe. Its effects, however, are readily apparent. One of its effects is the mobilization of persons or materials on behalf of the power holders' interests. Political office holders are important power brokers, but when these leaders need information, they turn to policy planning groups. These policy planning groups are not elected, yet their influence on our society cannot be underestimated. Without democratic mandate or general public awareness, cold warriors quietly go about speaking the language, setting the agendas, forming a consensus, marketing the crisis, and pushing the buttons. There are a number of important policy planning groups, but among them, the Trilateral Commission is unique. It is the only group whose membership includes all of the summit nations, and it forms the hub of the interlocking network of policy forming groups. No other policy group can claim that 43% of its American members obtained high federal offices within 3 years of its founding. These were powerful executive positions, including National Security Advisor, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, the Vice Presidency, and even the presidency itself. This is the North American headquarters of the Trilateral Commission at 345 East 46th Street in Manhattan, across from the United Nations. Mr. Charles Heck, the North American director of the Trilateral Commission and publisher of its quarterly Trialogue.
When the Commission first came into real prominence for a lot of people, this was perhaps the only organization of its sort that Jimmy Carter had been involved in. He'd been a member since the beginning of the Commission in the middle of 1973 and had been a rather active member. And then when he went into the administration, a number of people that he appointed to high-level positions on the foreign policy side were also people who were members of the Commission. And many of those people, perhaps most of those people, he had met in the course of his activity in the Commission.
This is a film about power.
Power.
Power is power.
That's the strength of it. It's,
Relatively more powerful. It's
Management. The managers.
manage.
but it's really a remarkable group that did.
Real quick, hit that like button, double tap that screen. Understand you in here with your boy Dilla T. And this is No Filters. Understand some of what's going on right now, Monday through Friday at 9 p.m. with your boy Dilla T. Let me tell you something's going on right now. Right now, we're going down that road. All week, we about to touch base with the powers that be. All week, we about to tap into the different organizations that run the elite. All week, we about to tap in on really what we need to know. See, all of that information about this and that, about who business and that don't matter. Them folk don't run the world. They just run around in the world. But these people that we're about to discuss, these are the people you need to know because these are the people that's running every aspect of the world. The decisions you make for yourself, your kids, the decisions you make with your job, everything, every aspect. And I'm talking about from health all the way to cartoons, all the way to social media, to the next big thing, to the next person that ain't the next big thing. These are the people that push those buttons, and they doing it for personal gain and for world interest. Hit that like button, double tap that screen. You already know what's going on in the building. Don't get it twisted. You in here with your boy and my fam. And you know this is. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an episode and share this with the world. You know how I'm coming and how I'm going. Let's get it popping. Let's go.
Certainly an utterly remarkable.
And real quick, what you need to know is, fam, right now, I'm going to tell you right now, this is a film that was based off in like 1984. So the importance of this right now is very serious because this was back in 1984. Some of y'all when you was born. And they telling you the decisions they was making then for how the world looked today. That's why this is so important. And this is, again, the Trilateral Commission. Okay? A lot of things that Jeffrey Epstein, one of the companies that Jeffrey Epstein brought up in that interview, one of the only companies he expressed, because those are the people that are making decisions about our lives and what's going on and how we govern today. Again, hit that like button, double tap that screen, become a member today. You can join for free. Let me tell you something. You can join right now. You can subscribe for free, but you can join and become a member right now. You know what the raffle is, one woman, one man. Shout out to Lori in the building. Shout out to Demi Hill in the building. The last two winners of the No Filters Classic T-shirt raffle. Sponsored by Nene Love Savvy TV in the building as always. Understand what's going on. Become a member today. Understand on Fridays how we're doing it. Don't never get it twisted. Pushing out the Zoom. And we definitely coming with the Zoom in the movie for the members. You understand what I mean? Hit that like button, double tap that screen. It's really real. Don't forget, this film is based off when you was born, some of you. And they're telling you what they did then to make the decisions of what today is. And I'm showing you how it started, who they are, and how they still run it today.
Group of people that gather in the Commission.
These are very important people in their different walks of life who have major responsibilities in their countries. Peculiar managerial bias.
And the concept behind the Commission is that its members exercise varying degrees of personal influence and can do so on behalf of these proposals.
It does reflect the Trilateral Commission membership. It does reflect the trilateral regions, North America, Europe, and Japan. And that is the forum where heads of government and heads of state do actively meet and have in the past sometimes made collective decisions and programmed out coordinated action.
One point to be added here is that what we're trying to do is outline an agenda not only for the immediate summit, which would require therefore the adoption of these recommendations by the governments between now and I believe June, right? But we're also outlining a program, an agenda for the future, which would be applicable to some of the forthcoming summits and also beyond the summits. We're talking about not only some internal socioeconomic adjustments, we're talking about the generation of external growth, we're talking about the achievement of more viable interdependence on the international plane, including closer security cooperation between the Pacific and the Atlantic regions. So we are in effect trying to outline an agenda that we hope will have some cumulative impact over the next several years. And the concept behind the Commission is that its members exercise varying degrees of personal influence and can do so on behalf of these proposals.
Number one, the meetings are not open to the public for the reasons that I just disclosed. It would have no purpose if we did open to the public.
I would say there were several main ideas involved in the formation of the Trilateral Commission back in the middle of 1973. And those people that were forming the commission thought that in trying to pull together the highest level, sort of unofficial discussion group they could from these three regions to look at the problems that we all faced, they might have some effect in the policy debates in our three regions and moving the mix of ideas, if you will, in a somewhat more cooperative direction. The United States was no longer and would never again be in such a singularly dominant position in the world. By the early 70s, the United States just couldn't manage things for everyone in quite the manner that the United States had. I suppose a third idea I would emphasize in particular is the importance given to Japan.
Increase policy,
Agenda,
policy, gender, global economics, and global politics, global strategy,
Stability.
policy, global economics, and global politics, and global strategy,
deficit,
Defense deficit,
defense,
defense commitments, defense expenditure,
security, an agenda for the future,
global and regional policies,
deficit,
stability,
security,
agenda,
global and regional policies.
impact on interest,
They should set that agenda. They should set that agenda.
economic policy.
what we're trying to do is outline an agenda.
And Europe were to agree to spend more money in building up conventional arms,
Defense and
interest policy, agenda,
Interest, policy, agenda. To translate this language into English, we have Holly Sklar, author and editor of a highly acclaimed book, Trilateralism, the Trilateral Commission and Elite Planning for World Management.
Trilateral Commission leaders basically use two arguments to defuse criticism of the Trilateral Commission, to make people think that it's really not a problem at all. They say, look, people criticize us on the right and on the left, and if we're criticized from both the left and the right, then we must be doing something right. We must be basically a centrist organization that nobody should have problems with. On the other hand, they say the Trilateral Commission is not a secret organization, and therefore there is nothing to worry about. It's not a conspiracy. It doesn't have control over all events. So why should anybody be worried about it?
Management. It's a language, elite management. It's a language of power.
Yes. Care to comment on trying to understand the Trilateral Commission, how influential you say, or how successful they've been in implementing their goals or policies that they've been trying to get?
Well, the Commission was founded, as some of you know, 10 or 11 years ago, at a time when the relationship between the United States and its principal allies in Western Europe and in Japan were somewhat strained. And one of its purposes was to try to improve these relations. Secondly, one of its very major purposes was to give Japan an outer reach, which is not focused primarily on the United States, or almost exclusively, but also in Western Europe, and therefore to foster a relationship between Western Europe and Japan. I think the Commission has had significant success in doing that, and even the idea of the trilateral relationship has now gained acceptance in all of the three regions. Beyond that, by issuing periodic reports, the Commission, I think, has contributed to the policy discourse within the three regions, and some of its proposals have been, in fact, adopted, such as, for example, the additional lending window of the World Bank, which was an explicit proposal of the Commission, which was adopted by the World Bank. And over the years, the Commission has made a number of other reports for which one cannot necessarily claim that they were the catalyst for specific actions. But some of the actions recommended followed, indeed, with the Commission at least having been in the forefront of those recommending such actions. So I think it has had some constructive impact, though obviously one shouldn't exaggerate the importance of a private body such as this.
It was attacked by the right for being too internationalist in the United States. It was attacked by the left in Europe for being too capitalist and too status quo orientated.
David Owen, member of the British Parliament, leader of the Social Democratic Party in the United Kingdom.
Attacked by the right for being too internationalist in the United States. It was attacked by the left in Europe for being too capitalist and too status quo orientated. In fact, if you look at its reports, they cover a very long range. It's very interesting now. One of the world's democratic great problems of unemployment has been a central theme of the report. But I think that one of the other interesting things, speaking as a European, is that we are now increasingly conscious of the importance of the Pacific Basin in terms of the orientation of US policy. We've hitherto been able, I think, to take for granted that the Atlantic orientation of United States policy was a dominant, all-pervasive element. I don't think we can any longer take that for granted. Now, as long as it's an even relationship in which the United States looks both to the Pacific Basin and across the Atlantic Ocean, I don't mind. But we in Europe must be very conscious of the fact that if we allow us to fall back economically, technologically, or perceived to be not paying our fair share of defense, then there would be a danger that we would begin to be shut out of that all-important dialogue, and the Pacific Basin orientation would become marked. And the trilateral is a very useful forum for reminding Europe of the importance of Japan in particular, perhaps, because we've historically always looked across the Atlantic, but we've not so traditionally had this linkage with Japan, although we are beginning to do so in terms of investment, industrial links, economic links, and personal and social links. And I think this is one of the very important aspects of the Commission. And personal and social.
Personal networks. It was the Trilateral Commission that coined the term Third World in one of its papers. They suggested that the summit meetings be held and outlined their agendas. Yet Dr. Brzezinski says that their impact shouldn't be overly exaggerated.
Is it your opinion then that the Trilateral Commission isn't a very powerful organization?
Well, I would say that that no organizations like this that are basically sort of idea organizations and discussion organizations have a lot of power. I mean, that it's governments that have the power, or it's individual corporations or other institutions that perhaps within their own narrow segments swing a good bit of weight. If I take the organizations in this area that the Commission is in, sort of unofficial policy discussion organizations, I mean, among those organizations, the Commission is perhaps relatively more powerful. It's certainly an utterly remarkable group of people that gather in the Commission. But collectively, that adds up to a far less than this remarkable mythology in many quarters about the organization.
According to Mr. Heck, governments have power, corporations have power, and other institutions have power, but the Trilateral Commission doesn't. Again, Holly Sklar offers a more balanced perspective.
But basically, critics like myself of the Trilateral Commission don't ever say that the Trilateral Commission is a conspiracy, that it's a dictatorship, that it's an organization that is bent on setting up what's often called a one-world government. Critics like myself, we say that the Trilateral Commission is a very powerful organization representing the interests of multinational corporations and banks, powerful economic forces. It's an organization that is trying to manage world events, national events, international events in its own interests. That's what makes the Trilateral Commission important, not the fact that every time a Trilateral Commissioner opens his mouth, there are very few women on the Trilateral Commission, so I'll use his in this case, opens his mouth, the world events jump. That's not where the people around the world jump. That's not the case. Sometimes the Trilateral Commission has success in its influence, and other times it doesn't. The point is, it's a very powerful organization, perhaps the most powerful organization on the international scene today, bringing together politicians, members of executives from multinational corporations and banks, with world leaders from the media, and so on.
I'm François Sauzet, the press officer at this meeting of the Trilateral Commission in Washington, and also the editor of Trilog, the quarterly publication of the Commission, and with me is my wife, Anne, who was in this meeting as photographer for that magazine, Trilog. I think the Commission has not responded to most of the extreme left or extreme right criticism that is addressed to it, because a lot of it is so sort of high-pitched and paranoid that we didn't answer. As far as the particular managerial bias that would be inbuilt in the Commission, I think it's enough to look at the list of our members to see that we don't have only business managers in this Commission. We have labor leaders, we have academics of all sorts of political obediences and convictions. And I think these people, at least the managers who are in the Commission, have certainly other forums that are infinitely more helpful when it comes for them to make business or to concentrate on their own business fortunes. They really don't come to the Commission to further their financial or business interests. They come here to meet other people of different countries and other streaks of professional life, usually people of quite high caliber, and to discuss really quite high-level international issues without any kind of immediate profit-making potential.
Well, the question of power is not so much a question that should be directed to the Commission. You have the membership list, which is open and not at all secret. These are very important people in their different walks of life who have major responsibilities in their countries. If they want to carry out messages and if they want to go towards our government, they can through other means. We have no democratic legitimation to take up these issues from the point of view of global politics. We were not elected. The members were not elected in this Commission.
The goal of the Trilateral Commission is to shape the world economy in the interests of the members it represents. Again, multinational corporations and banks from the United States, Western Europe, and Japan. What is that world economy going to look like, and what does it mean for people in the United States? That's something I think people need to be very concerned about, because we see it right now in formation, basically. We see what's happening to the economy today. The economy is moving from one in which manufacturing jobs, manufacturing industries has played a very crucial role, in which auto workers and steel workers played a very strong part, played a very important part of the economy, the national economy here in the United States. As far as trilateral commissioners are concerned, the question isn't what's good for people in the United States or people in Great Britain. The question is, what is good for the multinational corporation and bank, which has interests around the world in many countries, if not almost all countries. And so as far as they are concerned, the economy should be shifted along these lines. Western Europe, Japan, the United States, and Canada should be moving to an economy, which it is, based on high technology, based on industries of the future, industries like robotics, industries like microelectronics, industries like aerospace industries, computers, and so forth. This kind of economy based on high technology has been applauded here basically as the way of the future. What people aren't saying, although you can see it sometimes if you sit down and read the business press, Business Week, for example, you can see that this high technology industry of the future is one that basically has less jobs for people. And if you have a situation which we do in the United States, in which although legislation, it's on the books to call for full employment, or some level of full employment, we have a situation here where you have 10% unemployment or more if you look at it in real terms. We have a situation here in which business leaders are saying that for the near future, unemployment is not going to go below perhaps 6 or 7%. And we're talking about millions and millions of people out of work. So the kind of economy that they're talking about as being most efficient and being most profitable for major corporations and banks is one which means less jobs and lower wages for the people of the United States, which means fewer jobs and lower wages for people basically all around the world.
It's a language of power.
Not only for the immediate summit, which would require therefore the adoption of these recommendations by the governments between now and I believe June, right? But we're also outlining a program, an agenda for the future.
The goal of the Trilateral Commission is to shape the world economy in the interests of the members it represents, again, multinational corporations and banks.
We're talking about not only some internal.
So real quick, double tap that screen, hit that like button, double tap that screen. Let's grow. Listen to me. Subscribe right now to the episode so you don't miss an episode, and share this with the world. Now, this is what's really going on in the real seasons that's really real. And feel me like that, and feel me and understand that for real, because these people are telling you that they never were elected by any one of us. They're saying that out of their mouths. They never was elected by us. And then they're also saying is that it's made up of people from around the world. People that are on banks, that own banks all across the land. People that have power, people that have high and political and financial influence over decisions being made for you and me. You need to hear what's being said. I know this probably sounds boring. Why? Because it's not 2026. See, this don't sound like 2026. This sounds like 1984. 1984 was probably boring for you. Why? Because you just came in the world and wasn't nothing going on. It wasn't no AI. It wasn't no cell phones, fam. It wasn't none of that. So let's get right and understand what you're listening to, because for some reason, when you listen to something that sounds boring, you just stop listening. But you don't even understand what you're listening to is so important. Because even though you don't know these people on a first name basis, or you're not within states or countries of these people, you need to know who runs the world. You need to know who runs the world. And the fact is, it ain't the White House. It ain't Donald Trump. See, this Trilateral Commission is made up of powerful people that is influenced to influence us on whatever they want to do. And this is what's really sad. Everything is based on, because all these people are from like every other country. Chinese, Japanese people, Russian. I mean, you can just go down the line. American. I mean, they from all walks of life. So they have political people, professors, people that study us. I mean, they got it all, fam. And think about it. They've been doing this since like 1973. This 2026. All of the decisions that's been made has been by them. So at some point they were sitting down like, hey, yeah, we coming up on something new now. Yeah, and I'm feeling like we got so much money, fam. I feel like we can start making robots around this month. And you got everybody at the Trilateral Commission like, that sounds like something. Because they like, humans got feelings. Humans mess up. Humans don't care. Humans choose to do this, choose to do that. Humans always mess up. Humans don't care. Humans don't forgive. Humans don't forget. Humans do things off of conscience, care, feelings. And because of that, life is upside down, up, down, up, down, up, down. When they started to figure out that if we can make robots that don't have none of those problems, life would go a lot smoother. It'll be a lot more people locked up. Oh, let's get right. Let's get right. Let's get right. Hit that like button, double tap that screen. Listen to me. It'll be a lot of more people locked up if AI was operating as police. Because why? They wouldn't let you go. You know how that one officer like, oh, okay, you was just speeding. You ain't doing nothing. You ain't got no record. This ain't no prior. So you good. Go ahead, fam. Don't trip on it. No, if there was AI, oh, excuse me, ma'am. I'm sorry. You were doing tonight. You were doing 5 over the speed limit. Please step out the car. Oh, I got to step out the car? Because I did 5 over. You can't let that go? I'm sorry. No conclusion. We can't let that go. It's mandatory. All passengers receive a ticket. If AI, if chat has something to do with it, I bet you love chat, don't you? Yeah, but if chat become the police, now you mad. Because they're not going to let nothing slide. So I'm trying to get you to understand how the Trilateral Commission came up with social media. Yeah, they came up with it. You didn't, they did. They came up with social media. They said if we can just get everybody to interact with each other, we might come up with something. Because they can interact for the good or they can interact for the bad. But it don't matter. As long as we can get them to interact together or against, the world will become its own warfare field. It'll become its own war zone. Let me say that again. If we can just get the people to interact, we would leave it up to the people to cause chaos, problems, and war. And that is exactly what's become of us. They try to give it to us in good reason, but really it's bad solution, bad conclusion, bad intent. On your life and mine is that some men in a room came up with social media. Some men in a room came up with COVID-19. They might not have whipped it up and gave it to us, but they sat there and made a decision about why it should be out there. And one of the main faces on this board that's very important that I want you to pay attention to when he starts talking is who? Rockefeller. Because Epstein said that Rockefeller was the one that recruited him. Again, if you listen to these people, they're telling you and they're trying to downplay and lie and deceive you on what the Trilateral Commission is. How it's really nothing. It's just a group of men and people from all walks of life that has an opinion of trying to make tomorrow a better day. This is the lies. And yet they tell on themselves by telling us that they weren't elected correctly. How are they able to make powerful decisions about our life if they're not elected by the people to do such? This is the ignorance I'm talking about. This is the deception. These are the lies in our face. When we talked about the Bohemian Grove the other night, for those that tuned in, understand, if you're not, go back, go to No Filters, check it out. We talked about Bohemian Grove. This was the place that they spoke about where they picked the next president. Now we talk about the Trilateral Commission of the people that says who will be that president. They the ones that say, hey, it's time for a new one. And then they pass it to Bohemian Grove to make the decision and say it's got to be him. They all work together. So when we're talking about the Trilateral Commission, they have broken all rules of life because they're not elected by the people. And yet they make the decisions for our lives today for tomorrow. Hit that like button, double tap that screen. It's a reason why we cook it.
Socioeconomic adjustments.
The economy is moving from one in which manufacturing jobs, manufacturing industries have played a very crucial role.
Socioeconomic adjustments.
You can see that this high technology industry of the future is one that basically has less jobs for people.
We're talking about.
Listen to what he is saying, and then she is breaking down what he is saying in layman terms. Because as you come to know filters to inform, understand, and be aware, this is also politics for the layman. Because he is saying social engineering, and then she's breaking down basically them talking about social people, everybody together working on people talking, be coming up with social media. This is them talking about it back then, and some smart ass came up with social media. He is breaking down every facet, every organization, every category, every department of the world. This is scary because these men that you see on the back of this screen are the ones that's making decisions on our lives, and no one gave them permission. They just said, hey, listen, fam, we all finna just meet over here because we got more money than everybody. So we just gonna meet over here and start just making decisions for everybody. Why? Because we got more money than everybody. We're gonna start making decisions for everybody. I know that's how some of y'all feel in your real life, don't you? You be like, I got more money than everybody. I'm gonna just start making decisions for everybody. You can be out with your friends. You can be out with your family. You the one talking about, I got more money than everybody. Oh yeah, I'm finna make decisions for everybody right now. Because we ain't getting nowhere. How the one in the room that ain't got nothing talking the most? Hold up. Shh. These people said we got more money than everybody. We just gonna meet up over here and start making decisions for everybody. That is the worst thing that ever happened to us in our lives. And now we're out here looking at our lives in 2026 and seeing how everything is unfolding, unraveling. All of the curtains are coming off. All of the sheets are being pulled back. All of the blinds are being opened. All of the curtains are being opened. And now we're seeing everything. And now we're finding out who is running this. And you see these old men that ain't going to live past what they is on this screen. But yet their kids are. Their families is. Their legacy will live on. So the decisions that they set and made, others have to carry out as they get older. And that is exactly what has happened. Each and every one of these men have someone from their camp or their family that represents them on their board. And the fact that everything is being disposed, Dorothy, is only one reason why, and that is to invite Antichrist levels up into this world. This is how you usher in a savior. This is how you usher in Antichrist. This is how you usher in extra evil. All we got to do is just make everything go crazy, and then all of a sudden somebody got to come like a thief in the night as the savior. Hit that like button, double tap that screen. Let's go.
The goal of the Trilateral Commission is to shape the world economy in the interests of the members it represents. Again,
the goal of the Trilateral Commission is to shape the world and its economy to the liking of the members on the board. is that not worth nothing in this world? They telling me again. Oh my God, that's got to do something to you. The reason why the Trilateral Commission exists is for them to shape the world and engineer it to their liking. Who is they? Some of them don't come from none of our background. Some of them ain't been through nothing we've been through. But yet they're making the world shape to their liking, to those individual likings. And each person is from some other country. So think about this, fam. Each one of them represents a piece of the country. Whether it's a Chinese, a Russian, an American, Jamaican, it don't matter. Each one of them represents each side of the world. So literally when they having a meeting, all of us are in that room because one person from each country is in there almost. That one person is making a decision for an entire country or an entire And when we talk about how they've been planning this for a while, it's different because the fact they've been planning it, but the fact we didn't know who it was. We always had some different names or so many different situations, but we never knew who really was the real top dogs. The Trilateral Commission are really the top dogs. That is the elite and the elite alone. Literally. And you never really put a face to it because you never know who really runs what. That's why we had to go back to 1984. This is what this film is. 1984. That is when it started. That is before it started. It started before that. But I wanted you to understand how they were implementing the system that we live by today back then. They were already implementing it, already putting it together, already lining us up. Understand that's real. Lori in the building, Nene in the building, Chris in the building. You already know what it is. Mama K in the building, Love Within in the building. You understand what's going on in the building here? Let's get right. Let's get right. We cooking.
Multinational corporations and banks.
We're talking about not only some internal socioeconomic adjustments.
The economy is moving from one in which manufacturing jobs, manufacturing industries have played a very crucial role.
Socioeconomic adjustments.
You can see that this high technology industry of the future is one that basically has less jobs for people.
We're talking about the generation of external growth.
They worry about what kind of events are going to influence their ability to make profit, to pay cheap wages and so forth in the Philippines.
We're talking about the achievement of more viable interdependence on the international plane, including closer security cooperation between the Pacific and Atlantic regions.
And Europe were to agree to spend more money in building up conventional arms and
to increase and improve its own conventional defense commitment.
It's a language. It's a language of power.
The Trilateral Commission has expanded its membership from 175 to 325 members currently. They are chief executives from the major banks and corporations, or in government think tanks or the media. In government, for example, President Carter, Vice Presidents Bush and Mondale, Secretaries of State Vance, Haig, and Kissinger, and Defense Secretaries Brown, Weinberger, and McNamara.
Now, this is when President Carter was president and George Bush was the vice president. You better hear me today. This when Carter was president and George Bush was vice president. George Bush Sr. Yeah, let's go.
Group.
A diverse group and an intentionally diverse group of
diverse
Diversity.
conservative, liberal, right, left.
labor, and from a socialist point of
That's
view,
Rockefeller.
to people who are in business.
trying to pull together the highest level, sort of unofficial discussion group they could from these three regions
to shape the world economy, and it's in the interests of the members it represents. Again, multinational corporations and banks.
Membership, people who are distinguished citizens in their own societies.
An opinion leader.
Though the Commission consists overwhelmingly of upper-class members, they deny serving class interests. David Rockefeller, Mr. Multinational Banker, is the North American chairman and founder of the Trilateral Commission. He is also chairman of the largest policy organization in the United States, the Council on Foreign Relations.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I thought I'd just say a word to remind you about the background of the Commission. It was started in 1973 by a group of private citizens from Europe, North America, and Japan, who were concerned by the fact that governments were so overwhelmed with day-to-day crises that they really didn't have time to think through some of the longer-range problems facing the world, and that if a group of diverse, both in terms of geography and political viewpoint and background of activity, were to get together to identify what they felt were the key issues and were to prepare papers which could be made available to governments, that this could be a constructive thing. And originally we thought maybe we would only stay in being for 3 years. But at the end of 3 years, we decided that we hadn't resolved all the problems of the world and should go ahead.
Listen to what he said, fam. Boy, what?
States, the Council on Foreign Relations.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I thought I'd just say a word to remind you about the background of the Commission. It was started in 1973 by a group of private citizens from Europe, North America, and Japan.
By a group of private citizens. What I say? What I say? No, I just want to hear what I said. What I say? I just want to hear what I said. Somebody tell me what I said. No, I just want to hear what I said. You know what I said. I want to hear what I said. A group of guys that got more money, private citizens from North America, Europe, and something else. And they just felt like they can take life-living decision matters into their own hands, come up with a solution for stuff, and then send it to the governments all around the world like, this is what you should do. What?
Who were concerned by the fact that governments were so overwhelmed with day-to-day crises that they really didn't have time to think through some of.
And then he gonna mess. Then this man talking about, and listen to him, listen to him, listen to me, listen to him. He said, governments didn't have time to deal with other things because they had day-to-day crises. So these people felt like they could deal with the design of what the world should be, of how the world should be designed. Meaning that the government can manage crises, but they are there to design the world. So that's the level of what he busting out with and how he popping with it. Oh, shout out to a love with them with the 1999 donation in the super chat. Get it, understanding what it is. Truly appreciate the love and support. Really real. Listen to me. That's how serious it is, though. Because this man is telling you that they just chose to do that because the government doing what they doing, taking care of government stuff, so they ain't got time to just all of a sudden make decisions for the future of the world. So he said, oh, we just gonna take it upon ourselves to do it. We're gonna write up a memo. We're gonna show you the whole blueprint, and then we're gonna send it to governments and say, hey, you can operate off of this blueprint. And then other governments can just follow suit. And that's what we are today. That is the most sickening thing to ever hear, because that is so illegal. That is so wrong. And I don't know why they think it ain't. They just up here talking like, you know, we got big money, so we just gonna say what we gonna do. Can't nobody really stop us. That's basically what this is. And who drove this? Rockefeller. Hit that like button, double tap that screen. We cooking for real.
Longer range problems facing the world, and that if a group of diverse, both in terms of geography and political viewpoint and background of activity, were to get together to identify what they felt were the key issues and were to prepare papers which could be made available to governments, that this could be a constructive thing. And originally we thought maybe we would only stay in being for 3 years. But at the end of 3 years, we decided that we hadn't resolved all the problems of the world and should go ahead. And so we're now in our 4th triennium, which will end next year. And we have already decided at this meeting that it should.
Listen to what he said. This how you know they on some secret society stuff. He said, now we're on our 4th triennium. Now this is the Trilateral Commission. Why is it called we're on our 4th what?
Only stay in being for 3 years. But at the end of 3 years, we decided that we hadn't resolved all the problems of the world and should go ahead. And so we're now in our 4th triennium, which will end next year. And we have already decided at this meeting that it should be continued for another 3 years.
Big lemon cookies.
Commission is a ruling class organization, not really gathering together for any personal profit, but for a class interest.
Well, I really think when you look at the composition of the membership, it would be hard to describe it as representing any particular group. The only category that you could say is that they are, for the most part, opinion leaders. And so, but that isn't a class. I mean, there are opinion leaders from broad categories that go from labor and from socialist point of view to people who are in business. And
and listen, they asking him questions like, okay, so what organization are you all representing? Okay, so who are you? Okay, yeah, so who y'all with? Who with you? And what y'all doing? Yeah, that's what's going on right now. And he's like, yeah, so we're not a group. We just a bunch of highly opinionated people where they put our opinions on paper and we share it with each other and the governments. And this is us trying to take care of long-term problems of the world, while the White House sit there and deal with crisis. So let's recap. This man is telling you we came together to try to sort out long-term engineering and changing decisions for the world tomorrow, because the White House is dealing with crisis, that they don't have time to plan the next couple decades of the world. And these people are telling this man this right now, and none of them don't feel like, oh, good, my G. Fam, think about this. None of the reporters are like, ain't that illegal? I would have been like, hey, excuse me, I'm sorry, Dealatofficial with no filters yet. Isn't that illegal? Repeat the question. Yeah, I'm sorry, Dealatofficial with no filters. Yeah. Is that illegal? Yeah, a bunch of guys just coming together that have no background of police or elected by the people of any such or any board, Democratic Party of any such or any minority or any independents. What's your name again? And who did it with you again? Say it again. And then you know somebody else gonna be able to try to question. Yes, it's Tina 88 with ABC News. I'm like, shut up. This is still Dilla T with no filter. Ain't that illegal? Because you know how the reporters be, all the reporters be in one room trying to figure it out. I'm gonna be over there like, hold up, wait a minute. Let me get this cookie. Hold up. It's still my turn question. It's still my question, mother. I'm still asking questions. Give me a minute. Okay. Ain't that illegal? Again, Dealatofficial with no filters. Let me Dealatofficial report live. Dealatofficial with no filters. 89, 88. St. Louis. Ain't that no? Ain't it illegal? Well, I'm gonna tell you how they gonna do me. I know how they coming, fam. They try to shut you down when they know you're shutting up. They try to shut you down when they try to do you like they do. You hear me? So a group of men just said, forget it, fam. We just gonna start making decisions for everybody since the White House gonna take care of crisis. We just gonna make decisions for life. What? They should be shot 30 times. And I'm talking about big 50 round on there. Well, I pull up on them like, wait a minute, what you say? Before live, no filter, coming out live, St. Louis. Just want to know, are you able to do this legally? Is this legal? Oh yeah, just filter. I thought it would, mother. I load them up. I'm talking about I line them up. I'm talking about when I say line them up, you see I got 50 and y'all got big rounds in there. You see them rounds? Them rounds right there, boy, them rounds get in you and expand. You hear me? Make your blood boil. You don't play with me, boy. I'd have been in there. I'd have came right from up under the sea like, yeah, do it too, no, because I want to know, is this legal? He'd have been like, I'm sorry, what did he say? Is it legal? Answer what? Boy, I ain't playing, boy. I had them old folk looking over there peeing in their pants, boy, on that podium. And they're peeing in their pants on the podium. Don't know what they, boy. What? Boy, can't even breathe. You hear me? Don't keep up in there with it. Lord, shout out to Lord with the $5 donation. You hear me? Don't play with us in here. Hit that like button, double tap that screen. We gonna question everybody. Is this legal? I thought it wouldn't. The hell?
I think that that's the strength of it, and that's why we've insisted that we should have in each country representatives from a broad political spectrum, and not just from a single group.
How does the Trilateral Commission have an impact, you believe, on like the average American? How much? What?
Well, I don't think it has any direct impact on anybody. What we hope is that the ideas that are generated by people who are intelligent and well-informed and well-motivated and who spend time dealing with these problems, that the papers that they prepare will be provocative and helpful to governments. And I think it's probably true that this document will certainly be made available to each of the governments that are going to be meeting at the summit, and I would hope some of the ideas might be suggested, but
that man. They said they having a summit, and each of the governments are meeting with them at the summit. Who authorized that? Dealatofficial with no filters. Who authorized that? Oh no, Dealatofficial with no filters. Who authorized that? And then what's that happening? And then what y'all gonna do to that? And then when they gonna do that? Okay, so who all pulling up? Is that free tickets or y'all charging for that? Is that an open thing or is that a private thing? Or is that private party? How much that cost to get in that? No, fam, you said it's Dealatofficial with no filters. You need to know who it is to get Dealatofficial with no filters. How much it cost to get into that? And is that a free thing or is that a party thing or is that an everybody thing? Is that a y'all thing or everybody thing? I want to know. Dealership with no filters. Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question for Rockefeller. Yes. Who put this together? And how much y'all charging to get in? Is it a website? They got a link? Is they shooting that, or you just Eventbrite? What is that on? Is you sending that money? Is y'all taking cash out, or what y'all doing on that? Talking about a summit. You got a summit going in the government going to meet a bunch of men that just said we just gonna start leading the world today. What? Yeah, all right.
The direct impact on the people of any country would be incredible.
Yeah, they're gonna try to put a plug on my mic, fam. You ever deal it to you? I know. When is this going down? They're gonna be like, excuse me, sir. Cut him off. Can you be? No, hold up, fam. No, fam, hold up, fam. I got the pass. I got the free pass like everybody. I got the media pass around my neck 2 times. I got the media pass. I got the badge. I got the name tag. You hear me? They trying to shut me down. I got the what? This Dealatofficial. I got the name tag. I got the badge. Okay, and I got the media pass. And now you try to come over here and shut me down, man? Because I said, oh, can we get in the summit? How much it cost to get in the summit? Is it legal? No, hold on, man. What? No, I got a media. I got a name tag. I got a name tag. Dealatofficial with no visit. Dealatofficial with no visit. Who authorized the summit? I want to know who authorized the summit right now. Do it. Let me hear it. No, man, you try. That's how they gonna try to do me, man. And I know it. When I come with the questions, I come heavy. They gonna try to shut me down. And we're not gonna have it, fam. We're not gonna have it today, not today. Hit that like button, double tap that screen. It's like that for real.
Yes. This is a concept which is, even in Europe where it started, is becoming far less abrupt than it used to be the case. But if you look at the list of participants, you will see that we had among our colleagues trade union leaders from Japan, from Germany, from Italy, and from the United States. And if you look at the membership list, you will see that in all countries there is a trade union representation. I would not associate that with the concept of class. It means there's a wide spectrum of people involved in the work.
George Berthoin, the European chairman of the Trilateral Commission. He explains how the Trilateral Commission is elite, but not necessarily upper class in their minds.
Now, would the trade unionists, the leaders of trade unions, would these be the only, therefore, working class members of this group, or are there working class members of this group? Is there a...
this is why this concept of class this is something which, this is one of the great political transformations in Europe. In this country, it's different. It's not a country which started on the class basis. But certainly the class element was very strong in Europe. But gradually it is disappearing. But you have people from the working class who are members of the elite. Now, I give you, it's normal. I give you one example. In France, the General Secretary of the Elite, with the number one.
Did you hear what he said? Press one if you heard what he said right now. Press one if you heard what he said. Press one if you heard what he said. Press one if you heard what he said. Because that boy just said the biggest thing. I can't even believe he said that. I don't even know if he even know what he said. Because he said it so strong. He said it like he was mad. The people that are part of it are part of the. What? Dealership with no filters. Can we repeat that again?
But certainly the class element was very strong in Europe. But gradually it is disappearing. But you have people from the working class who are members of the elite. Now,
what? I'll say that again one more again, because I know you ain't just said what you said. Boy, what?
But gradually it is disappearing. But you have people from the working class who are members of the elite. Now, I give you...
You better shut the... Well, I've been in smack this... You about to smack... I would have been... said Dealership with no fit. Said it again. smack everything, everybody. I just smacked everybody going down. I said, what? Who you talking about? Bop. Everybody going down. You hear me just boom, bow, bang. Everybody just, what? He falling off. Talking about the class, the elite. He said that like everybody's with the elite. That boy just said everybody with the. That boy said these people is with the folk. And think about this. Today, 2026, talking about the elite. This boy said that back in 1984. As if that wasn't a big deal or a big thing. And now we like, what? Oh, this diabolical.
Well, it's normal. I'll give you one example. In France, the General Secretary of the Elysee, who is the number one man, is called Bianco, is the son of an Italian worker who emigrated when Mussolini was in power in Italy. His mother was doing jobs, cleaning, things like that. And the man worked, he became number one in our best school, called École Nationale d'Administration. And now, if you look at the man, he is an elite. So the problem is, how do you have access to the elite? Now, if it's a closed system, then I would be more inclined to the class. But if the renewal of elite is open as it is in this country, I'm far less pleased to discuss classes. And this is what's taking place in Europe. So we have people who are leaders of multinational companies who, from the class point of view, come from an extremely so-called modest origin. So, but the elite, this is an elite. But it is an elite composed of people coming from all sorts of sectors. And I can show you one of the expression of that in the education. Sometimes if you were from a relatively well-off background, you had an opportunity to learn foreign languages. So we have some of our trade union colleagues who didn't have this privilege in their primary or secondary school of education. So they attend a meeting, they don't speak English, but they have interpreters. This was the case for the Italian trade union leader. He had an interpreter, so we provide this facility. So, but this is a concept. You know, it's a very much of a 19th century Europe type concept. I think it is a. I cannot speak for Japan. It's a very complex society. But our Japanese colleague from the trade union is somebody from the working class. I sat at one of the dinner near him, and this is the experience, and this is what it represents. This is an elite, but this is an elite composed of people coming from all sorts of sectors.
These people meet to manage society for their own profits, to maintain stability in the system, to discipline themselves, to think about the whole system.
To think about who its members are. The main members of the Trilateral Commission are corporate executives, are heads of multinational banks, who have factories all over the world, who have banking institutions all over the world, who essentially see the world as their farm, supermarket, factory, and sometimes their playground. They don't just worry about what happens in the United States. They worry about what goes on in Guatemala, what goes on in El Salvador. They worry about what goes on in the Soviet Union. They worry about what kind of events are going to influence their ability to make profit, to pay cheap wages, and so forth in the Philippines. They essentially have a global perspective.
So as far as the membership's concerned, I don't know whether you've had copies of the attendance, but I think it'll give you an idea of the breadth of membership. It's really a remarkable group that did participate.
That it's impossible for the European group to have a kind of a porte-parole, sort of an official spokesman. You have in the European group at meetings, you have bankers which are seated next to trade unionists. You have members of parliament or politicians from different parties, and you have also other members that have different activities also in different political ideas. There again, it's the originality of this commission, anyway, from the European group, is this diversity, which is its strength at the same time. especially today, as you everybody knows, with growing difficulties and a certain tendency of people sort of breaking up and no longer sort of staying together to cope with common issues and try to solve common problems.
This would go from labor and from a socialist point of view to people who are in business. And I think that that's the strength of it. And that's why we've insisted that we should have in each country representatives from a broad political spectrum.
Their power can be felt in the American political scene.
I was amazed in 1980 what
that man just said. Hit that like button, double tap that screen. Listen to me. He just said we have everybody. I think everybody should be one person representing each country across the spectrum. Period. Then he was talking about how they have all different types of people a part of the board of the commission. So that tells you more that they had everything to do with ChatGPT. They had everything that's just about anything. They got something to do with. It's too much for them to just allow another person to just make that type of decision. These things have to be aligned correctly. And that's just being real, fam. You understand what I'm saying? I think this becomes more scarier because these people still exist today. And now that you know that they have everything to do with when to go, when not to go, when to tell you to, this is these people trying to control your life, man, in one way or another. But I know right now, this a bunch of guys that didn't nobody ask for they say so. Nobody asked for them to make decisions for the world. Oh my mama, fam, ain't no way you gotta. I don't sit well. That don't sit well with me. It just don't, man. Because at this point now, y'all just telling me anybody can make the decisions about tomorrow for my kids. Anybody can make decisions just about today that affects tomorrow. Anybody could just walk into a situation and say, hey, we on the commission because we didn't check with nobody to even create this commission. Like they didn't check with no authorities. They didn't check with nobody. They didn't ask if they can go by that house and have meetings in that house. No. They just was like, hey fam, I think we could have something to do with the direction the world is going in. We can have something to do with how we want to set the world up for the next 10 years. Come on, fam. So these are the challenges that we have to deal with that's set in front of our faces. Because it almost makes you feel some type of way that it's not authority. It's not the White House. It's not the men in suits. It's not even FEMA, man. It's just some guys came together and said, we want to do this. And then sent it out to the world, and now the world like, oh, okay, we signing up with y'all. Like, what? So it's past frustrating, man. Hit that like button, double tap that screen. We almost done. Let's go.
One had Jimmy Carter and Walter Mondale, of course, and John Anderson, who was a member of the commission at the time, and George Bush on the Republican side had been a member of the commission for a few years after he had come out of the Ford administration in 1977.
And I suppose the most dramatic example of that was President Carter, who himself was a member, and there were 19 members of the North American Commission whom he asked to join his government, several of them, including Vice President Mondale, who were made members of his government. And so this was interpreted that somehow this was a subversive group that was trying to control the world and our government and so on. The fact that I happen to be a Republican and supported President Ford didn't seem to feature very much in the fact that somehow we had put Mr. Carter in office.
Obviously, David Rockefeller voted for Ford. His brother was the vice president under Ford.
I would put it differently. I would say that I think there's a greater chance of some of these recommendations being implemented if the approach recommended by the report gains support externally, namely that there is a trade-off between obligations and sacrifices among the three regions, and that the United States will be more inclined to take some of the necessarily painful steps to cope with its deficit if it finds, for example, the Europeans doing somewhat more in the area of defense, and it finds the Japanese adopting a more forthcoming attitude regarding their international obligations, both on the level of economic assistance and perhaps some direct or indirect increased defense efforts. This is the basic concept, and I think the consequences of such a bargain being adopted would be similarly beneficial for either a Republican or a Democratic administration.
Now, David Rockefeller has argued in counterattacking to some of the statements that people like myself have made about the Trilateral Commission's influence on policy, on candidates and selecting candidates, has argued that he sometimes personally might vote for a non-Trilateral Commission candidate. And this misses the point about how this organization can mold politics and select candidates. What happens is that the Trilateral Commission, particularly in the Democratic Party, tries to influence the selection of the candidates by donating to several candidates. Several Trilateral Commission members will donate to different candidates, and also the Trilateral Commission connected news media will cover several candidates, all of whom are acceptable to the Trilateral Commission and to the ruling class. And this is the key thing, is that they will get a situation where all the candidates that are in the general election, the two main candidates, will both be acceptable to the Trilateral Commission and to the ruling class, and doesn't matter who they vote for, either one will be acceptable and will be useful from the point of view of the Trilateral Commission. So no matter. Whereas these same individuals are not going to be serving the interests of the American people. So the Trilateral Commission people have someone in place on both parties that will help them and serve their interests, and the American people are always faced with this choice of the lesser of two evils, and either way they vote, it's going to be someone that's not really very good for their interests, but one may be a little bit better than the other. We need to get a politics that gets away from that, where the people's interests can really be represented by a candidate. And one of the first steps to that is understanding how the process really works and how the ruling class, through the Trilateral Commission and other institutions, controls the political process in this country. We need to change that in order to have our interests, the American people's interests, union people and minorities and women and all the constituencies that make up this country, so our interests can be served by the American political system.
Basically, what critics like myself say about the Trilateral Commission is not by any means that it's a conspiracy, but that it is a very powerful organization with very powerful people who are members who take the time out of their busy days. They're always talking about what busy schedules they have to come to Trilateral Commission meetings, to take part in writing the report, to discuss what they think would be the best policies, national and international policies for managing the world economy, for managing the international monetary system, for managing relations with the third world, for managing relations with the Soviet Union. They sit down together and they say, what is in the best interest of the economic forces and the political forces that they represent? Wow. So you can imagine a group of multinational corporation executives and bankers sitting together and saying, what is it that should be done that can best advance our interests? And what are those interests? Their interests are those who see the world as their farm, their factory, their supermarket, and sometimes their playground, and they say, what are the best policies domestically and internationally that can advance our economic interests in any part of the world at any time, whether it's in the third world, it's in a third world country, it's in the Soviet Union, or it's in the United States. They sit down together and say, what are the best policies to advance our interests?
It's a question of time. I mean, not most of the people involved in the trilateral are very busy people, and therefore to give up 3 days is already a lot. And then, of course, in addition to that, there are the meetings of the co-chairman and regional meetings. I doubt whether we could get more participation by this caliber of person for a longer, for an expanded program.
I think there was general agreement with the broad thrust of the report, general agreement, consensus.
The greater the consensus, the belief that this does reflect the Trilateral Commission membership. It does reflect the trilateral regions, North America, Europe, and the Japan. And that is the forum where heads of governments and heads of state do actively meet and have in the past sometimes made collective decisions and programmed out coordinated action.
And the concept behind the commission is that its members exercise varying degrees of personal influence and can do so on behalf of these proposals.
The basic mode of operation to try to create more of a consensus among these distinguished citizens in the region, and hope that that consensus percolates out through the contacts that these people have, through the reports we publish, and so forth.
The greater the consensus amongst the people in the Trilateral Commission, all of them in their differing ways, have got ways of influencing governments.
In the words of Gerard C. Smith, the first chairman of the Trilateral Commission, he often stated that the Commission was trying to establish a private consensus in order to influence the public consensus. Is this still a direction that the Trilateral Commission is trying to head?
That's not a bad way to describe it. You do try to help create, or we do try to help create more of a consensus, certainly among members in the commission. And by selecting for membership people who are distinguished citizens in their own society, one is hoping to have hoping that one's ideas will flow into the policy debate and will have a hearing and hopefully have some constructive influence. So that is still the basic mode of operation, to try to create more of a consensus among these distinguished citizens in the region, and hope that that consensus percolates out through the contacts that these people have, through the reports we publish, and so forth.
I think there was general agreement with the broad thrust of the report in the discussion. Various points of view emerged on specifics. And without in any way trying to suggest the Commission as a whole endorses the report, because that is not its standard practice. I think that on the whole, the discussions seem to be constructive and positive insofar as the report is concerned.
Well, is it part of the Commission process to gain a consensus among its members for?
Yeah, but not a formal consensus. In other words, there are no votes, there's no formal statement by the Commission. The report remains, even after the discussion, the responsibility of the three authors.
Single warhead.
Yesterday, we had an excellent panel on Central America, and of course, principal topic of discussion there was the report prepared by the National Bipartisan Commission on Central America. Was chaired by Mr. Kissinger, and so he was the leader of the panel.
Defense expenditure.
Defense.
And yesterday afternoon, we took up a topic we'd never considered before, but the scientific, commercial, and military uses of space. And we're just sort of getting into this. It's a pretty big subject, and we obviously couldn't cover it, but I think everybody agreed that it was a subject we probably ought to take up again.
When it comes to intercontinental nuclear forces in this report, like the recent Scowcroft Commission, this report comes down in support of the United States over time developing a lighter single warhead intercontinental ballistic missile. on the much contested issue of intermediate nuclear forces in Europe that's so much at issue right now. The report does argue that the scheduled deployments will indeed and should indeed go forward.
Just let me say one. I think it's quite significant, really, that the Secretary of State chose as a platform for perhaps his most important foreign policy speech since he's been in office, the Trilateral Commission. And I think he did because he felt that this represented a broad spectrum of point of view in the trilateral nations, which after all are very important to the United States. But there is a logic to having the three areas of the industrial nations of the non-socialist world, which produce about 80% of the GNP of the world.
One way to look at the influence of the Trilateral Commission is to look at the recent summit that took place in Williamsburg, Virginia. In many respects, the summits are one of the clearest indications of trilateral success. The summits were originally conceived by the Trilateral Commission and have been held yearly ever since they first started. And one of the main things that happened at the summits was a declaration among the leaders that the International Monetary Fund should play more of a role than it has in the past. And that role in the past has been strong, but more of a role in policing and surveillance over the world economy. The Reagan administration came into office talking about how the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank and other institutions needed to have less of a role, and that the United States should provide less support for these institutions. And here you have, 2 years later, the Reagan administration, almost 3 years later, saying these institutions are institutions that need supporting and which should play this policing role over the world economy.
Now, let me tell you something. A reason why this was brought, because again, life as we know it has changed. And as we see things unfold each and every day, we don't know who's in charge, who's doing the unfolding, who's doing the direction of traffic, who's the one calling the shots. And now that we've learned that it's the Trilateral Commission, I pray that you understand, inform, and be aware that if it walk like a, talk like a, you know what it is, fam. Because that's how we come. And if it's a duck, that's what it is. As always, fam, you know what it is. You know what the level is. There's only one way and one way to do it, only right here with your boy Dealatofficial, Monday through Friday at 9 p.m. with my fam here at No Filters. As always, fam, I truly appreciate you listening. I truly appreciate you tuning in. I truly appreciate your attention on the matters at hand. And because of that, I truly love each and every one of y'all. As always, family, you know how to level those and all. You know how to level coming in, and you know how we coming going. But at the end of the day, we got to get in and where we fit in, because I got to get it done. As always, I truly appreciate y'all pulling up, man. Making sure that we understand, inform, and be aware. We reading the headline and then we reading in between the line. And that's just on the strip, fam, real hard. But I need you to understand something. You can always go back, check this video out. You can always subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an episode, and share this with the world. And of course, family, when you come in, make sure you get comfortable. Get you something to eat, something to drink, and something to smoke if that's what you do. Because you see the title, fam. You in here with your boy Dilla T, my fam. And this is No Filters. Good night, fam. Y'all be safe. Lock your doors. God bless.